Director of Audit and his team for their cooperation and support. Thank you, President.
Questions. Question 1. Mr. Chen Yong has informed me that Mr. Vincent Ching will ask the question on his behalf. Mr. Vincent Ching. Thank you, President. There are views that this year marks the 75th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China, which holds exceptional significance. In this connection, will the government inform this council whether it will set up a high-level steering group to oversee the relevant promotional and celebratory events? If so, of the expected time to commence work? 2 of the key events and the specific plans to be put in place to celebrate the National Day, and 3, how it will encourage the active participation of various sectors and classes of society together. Secretary for Home and Youth Affairs. President, on October 1st, 1949, the People's Republic of China, PRC, proclaimed its founding. This great event completely changed the history of modern China. The Chinese nation has since embarked on a broad path to achieve great rejuvenation. For more than 70 years, Chinese people of all ethnic groups have embraced struggles and worked hard together with one heart and one mind, making great achievements. The HESAR government has all along attached great importance to the celebration of the founding of the PRC. Every year, the government celebrates the National Day with the public and promotes patriotism and national pride through a series of activities and publicity programs. My consolidated reply in response to the questions raised by Mr. Chen Yong is as follows. The anniversary of the founding of the PRC has always been an important event for the region. As the 75th anniversary of the founding of People's Republic of China, this year's October 1st is all the more significant. In order to properly implement the activities and programs to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the founding of our country, the Chief Executive has instructed the Chief Secretary to lead the various bureaus and departments in making preparations for the National Day celebrations. In this connection, the Chief Secretary has given instructions at the meetings of the Steering Committee on District Governance and the Task Force on District Governance held in January, asking all bureaus and departments to make concerted efforts to plan and take forward the preparatory work of celebrations on all fronts, to create a colorful and enthusiastic atmosphere and cultivate people's sense of patriotism at different levels of the community. As instructed by the Chief Secretary, apart from key programs such as the annual large-scale National Day reception, flag-raising ceremony, variety show, and fireworks display, all bureaus and departments will plan an array of celebratory activities rich in content and diversity to enable more members of the public from different backgrounds and age groups to take part and share the joy of the National Day. The 18 district offices under the Home Affairs Department will work with their respective district councils to organize key National Day celebratory events with local characteristics to share the joy with the public. Apart from fostering patriotic sentiments, the government will also organize a series of thematic National Day celebratory events to showcase to all visitors from the mainland and other places the unique advantages and attractions of Hong Kong in terms of the staunch support we receive from the motherland and our global outlook. Various bureaus and departments have progressively commenced early-stage preparatory work for celebrations this year, including planning and preparing for relevant publicity arrangements. Moreover, bureaus and departments will plan for displays of a wider variety of publicity materials in celebration of the 75th anniversary of the founding of our country at their venues and buildings, and step up the scale and creativity of their festive decorations at popular and iconic locations so as to foster an intense festive ambience, promote the spirit of patriotism, and mobilize the active participation of all sectors of the community. The Steering Committee on District Governance, chaired by the Chief Secretary, and the Task Force on District Governance, chaired by the Deputy Chief Secretary, will continue to serve as the high-level steering structures of the government's preparatory work for the celebration of the 75th anniversary of the founding of the PRC, and guide and coordinate efforts of various bureaus and departments in the preparations for and implementation of various activities and publicity programs. The National Day is an occasion celebrated by the entire nation. The government believes that different sectors and organizations in society will actively echo and show support, such as organizing various activities and rolling out different offers to contribute to the celebrating of this important festive occasion. The government is confident that with the strong and unified support of the whole society, the celebrations will be smoothly organized, bringing joyful colors and pride to Hong Kong on October 1st this year. Mr. Vincent CHENG. President, last year, the HYAB and the CSDB have done a lot last year. And this year before 1st of October, the mainland patriots would have a 7-day holiday before 1st of October. And we also heard that giant pandas may be granted to Hong Kong. So will we have some good news in order to tell some good stories of Hong Kong? Thank you. Well, as said by Mr. Vincent CHENG, before 1st of July and 1st of October, the Chief Secretary would lead bureaus and departments in preparations, and different offers will be rolled out for different sectors of society for the celebrations of these festive occasions. And as said before, the Chief Secretary and the Deputy Chief Secretary will be leading various bureaus and departments to prepare the celebrations of the 75th anniversary of the founding of PRC. They will also coordinate offers rolled out by different sectors of the community. This is what we hope to achieve, and we hope that members and different sectors of the community will support our efforts. As for whether giant pandas will be granted to us in celebration of the founding of the PRC, we do thank the members' suggestions. We will pass on your views to the relevant departments and bureaus, and we do hope that the country has heard our wishes. Thank you. Mr. Chan Hak-kan. Thank you. We have seen the 5th anniversary of the promulgation of the Outline Development Plan for the Greater Bay Area. Will we have coordinated efforts within the Bay Area so that we can celebrate the occasion together? Thank you. Thank you, President. Thank you, Mr. Chan Hak-kan. Well, in fact, for 1st of July and 1st of October, we have different groups in the Greater Bay Area that would organize some events and activities, such as some youth groups under the HLAAB would work with associations in the Bay Area to organize events that would celebrate the founding of the country. So with the development of the Bay Area, it's not just in economic and other areas. We can also communicate more in terms of organizing events to celebrate festive occasions. And indeed, the 75th anniversary is an important milestone. I'm sure that we can do more with Bay Area associations to celebrate this occasion. Thank you. Dr. Kennedy. Mr. Kenneth Lau, thank you. Before, when we celebrated the National Day, many flags would be put in place, and that would create great festive ambience for the celebrations of National Day. So will the administration take this opportunity to coordinate the efforts of different sectors of community, especially new territories, rural committees, in order to organize celebratory events in the new territories? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kenneth Lau, for your suggestions, and I would like to thank the Hernyi Cook and rural committees for working with us before to organize events to celebrate the founding of our country in rural areas. And we do see characteristic decorations in villages such as plaques to celebrate the founding of our country. We've also seen special decorations such as the many flags that were hoisted. So I do think Hon Ye-kuk and the members of rural committees have been working so hard on these. And with the 75th anniversary of the founding of our country, we can continue to work together. And with the support of Hon Ye-kuk and rural committees, we can perhaps install more decorations that would have characteristics of rural villages. We can perhaps make good use of heritage monuments or architectures in rural villages. We can also hold special festive events special to the areas concerned. So let's all work together to have more celebratory events in rural villages. Thank you, Dr. Kennedy Wong. Thank you, President. I can see that in some government buildings and public housing estates, national flags were hoisted in celebration of national days before. Will the administration consider providing national flags to citizens, for example, those in public residential estates, MTR or link shopping malls, and educate them in the appropriate way to use such flags? Thank you. Secretary. Thank you, President. In fact, for the celebrations of the founding, the 74th anniversary of the founding of the PRC, we have had senior government officials give more advice on how to hoist national flags and how to better make use of national flags in premises. In 2023, for the 74th anniversary, we have 720,000 pieces of exhibits to celebrate the National Day. So we have seen a significant increase of such exhibits from before. We also have 3,000 odd exhibition points. And last year on National Day, we have banners sizes change to 0.56 meters times 1 meter to a bigger banner. So it would be more conspicuous. With the leadership of the Chief Secretary and Deputy Chief Secretary for these important occasions such as 1st of July and 1st of October, we do have more celebratory exhibits. And on 1st of October this year, as I said in my main reply, in January, the Steering Committee on District Governance and Task Force on District Governance met, and during the meetings, at that stage, the Chief Secretary and Deputy Chief Secretary coordinated different bureaus and departments and instructed the bureaus and departments to put more celebratory publicity materials in government buildings and premises. And it was also instructed that we should be more creative with our decorations. So simply put, we are already doing preparatory work. We have already increased the number of exhibition points and increased the quantity of publicity materials. Depending on the actual circumstances, we may have to make changes to the decorations in government buildings and premises. Dr. So Chen-wing. Thank you. The NPC last year announced that there should be changes made to national education to promote patriotism. The administration would definitely have the responsibility to do more. And with the 75th anniversary of the founding of the PRC this year, this would be a golden opportunity to do more. So apart from ordinary celebratory programs, will the administration have more publicity materials rich in content to promote the occasion before and after 1st of October so that it would be easier for Hong Kong citizens to know about the achievements of the country and beneficial measures promulgated by the country? Thank you. Secretary. Thank you, President. I must say first that this year is very much different from the years before. As I said in my main reply, the Steering Committee on District Governance and Task Force on District Governance held meetings in January and have instructions for the bureaus and departments to plan and take forward the preparatory work for National Day celebrations. We do hope to promote patriotic sentiments with such celebrations. We do think the 75th anniversary is an important milestone, and we will hold different activities to promote patriotism. So it will not be a single activity, it would be a series of activities, and each activity would have different aims and purposes. As I said earlier, this year is very much different, and we already have high-level steering from the Steering Committee on District Governance and Task Force on District Governance chaired by the Chief Secretary and Deputy Chief Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Stephen Ho. Thank you, President. Dr. Kennedy Wong's question was on flags. On behalf of the fishing and agriculture fisheries, would like to know more about sea parades. And we have seen before the government say that if the industries would like to hold such celebrations on sea, we have to apply for funding. And it was said that we should apply for funding from the city's fund. Is it possible for the administration to have a coordination platform, a mid-level coordination platform that can coordinate our efforts that would save administrative costs? Because we would also need perhaps 2 people, but we have the minimum threshold of funding of $500,000. Will it be possible to have a platform that would coordinate such smaller scale events? Thank you. Secretary. Thank you, President. We do respect the patriotic sentiments of the agriculture and fisheries industries. In the past years, except during the pandemic, we do see many such groups organize of their own accord celebratory events celebrating National Day. So I do appreciate their patriotic sentiments. As I said earlier, in the meetings of the Steering Committee on District Governance and Task Force on District Governance held in January, instructions have been given to bureaus and departments to organize celebratory activities with characteristics. And we do hope that we can expedite the administrative handling of such celebratory events. And with the leadership of the Chief Secretary and Deputy Chief Secretary, I think we will definitely do better in organizing celebratory events. Let's all work together to celebrate this important festive occasion. Thank you, Ms. Dari Lee. Thank you, President. This is a golden opportunity to do more to celebrate the festive occasion, and we do see the country that have embraced struggles and have gone from standing up, growing prosperous to becoming strong. I do not see the reply of the administration talk about the making clips or pamphlets on the journey of the country over the past 70-odd years so as to enhance students' understanding of the achievements of the country, because we do need to do more in national education. Thank you. Secretary. Thank you, President. As I said earlier, the meetings of the Steering Committee and Task Force on District Governance have instructed bureaus and departments to start preparatory works of National Day celebrations. We do attach great importance to patriotic education, and we'll definitely do more in this regard. Thank you.
Question 2, Mr. Paul TSE. President, there are views pointing out that the government has repeatedly refused the monitoring of publicly funded commercial projects by this council on grounds of commercial secrets, and has even used such grounds to rationalize the negligence in vetting and approving such projects. Taking the exhibition match in which a famous football champion participated earlier this month as an example, on the grounds that sensitive commercial information was involved, the government awarded a sponsorship of $16 million without requesting the organizer to provide its contract with the football club concerned. Also, on grounds of commercial secrets, the government had refused to disclose the agreement between the government and the operator of the cruise terminal, information such as the interest rate of the $5.4 billion loan made to the Ocean Park Corporation under an agreement, and the details of the agreement made with the Walt Disney Company in respect of the Hong Kong Disneyland Resort. In this connection, with the government informed this council, one, whether it has reviewed if the government's failure to request the organizer to provide its contract with the football club in respect of the aforesaid exhibition match has resulted in the government tying its own hands, in that it awarded the sponsorship fee of $16 million for the Mark event without fully discharging its responsibility for exercising due diligence. 2, as there are views pointing out that the aforesaid projects involve significant public interest and a huge amount of public money, whether it has assessed if the government's practice of refusing to disclose the relevant information is appropriate and will undermine the transparency of public expenditure and this council's monitoring power, and 3, whether it will, by drawing reference from the experience of the aforesaid exhibition match involving the football champion, make public as far as possible the contracts between the government and the developers in respect of projects involving the public-private partnership or enormous public expenditure such as the Northern Metropolis and the Khao Yi Chau artificial islands, or even by making reference to the two power companies' current practice of submitting to this council documents involving commercial confidences. Allow members of the council to peruse such documents in confidence so as to enhance the transparency in the use of public money and the strength of public monitoring. Thank you. Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism. President, the government has always been proactively facilitating the work of the LESCO and providing sufficient information to address members' questions. That being said, the role of the government is not only a regulator but also a promoter and facilitator. Government officials are target-oriented and have the will, competence and ability to deliver the targeted results. Hence, our work goes far beyond a regulator. When working on culture, sports and tourism development, the Culture, Sports and Tourism Bureau, CSTB, focuses on promotion and facilitation. As far as the mega events on culture, sports and tourism are concerned, we attach great importance to motivating the community during the facilitation process. Collaboration between the government and the community, including the business sector, is also of paramount importance, as it will create synergies to enhance the effectiveness of the relevant projects and also drive the development of related industries and even the economy. While we have to respect the mode of operation of private entities and the way they work with each other, we must also ensure the compliance with laws and regulations. When public money is involved, we should perform gatekeeping duties with our best endeavor and make no compromise. And we need to submit funding applications for certain projects to the Finance Committee, FC of the LESCO. We will follow the established procedures to set up the key features and financial arrangements of the projects, justifications for the use of public fund and other relevant information to facilitate members' consideration and approval. Depending on the circumstances and actual needs, we will also brief the respective panels as and when appropriate to ensure transparency. Where commercial information is involved, the government will have to balance various factors such as the public's right to know and so on. Now, in consultation with the Development Bureau and the Financial Services and Treasury Bureau, and consolidated reply is as follows. 1 and 2. The M-Mark system for major sports events was launched in 2024. Through the provision of matching fund and direct grants, it supports the hosting of major international sports events in Hong Kong, enhance the culture of sports event sponsorship among enterprises, as well as the scale and performance level of the events, thereby further promoting sports development in Hong Kong. Regarding the football exhibition match, the vetting criteria for granting the M-Mark status includes participating player lineup, team strength, financial viability, effect in driving the economy, media coverage and marketing plan, community appeal and social benefits, contribution to sports and so on. Under the signed terms and conditions of the agreement, the organizer had undertaken to stage the event as stated in the proposal submitted in the application and to submit an evaluation report after the event. CSTB will then conduct checks, monitor and evaluate the event before determining the final amount of the grant in order to safeguard the public money. The organizer of the particular football exhibition match withdrew its application and ultimately public fund money was not disbursed. CSTB and the Major Sports Events Committee are currently consolidating experiences gained from the case and other applications, including reviewing the approval and monitoring mechanism of the M-Mark system with the aim of enhancing the system and promoting the staging of more major international sports events in Hong Kong, thereby enhancing Hong Kong's position as the center for mega international sports events. The Kai Tak Cruise Terminal was constructed by way of public works under funding approved by the FC and was leased to a private operator in 2012 via an open tender. The operator has to operate on a commercial and self-financing basis and they have to pay rents to the government. No government subsidy was given to the operator. The Tourism Commission briefed the panel on economic development and the key terms of the terminals and leasing arrangements before the open tender. The Ocean Park Corporation manages the Ocean Park based on the Ocean Park Corporation Ordinance Cap 388. In accordance with the ordinance, it's been submitting annual report to LESCO every year, which includes detailed work report, financial statements, and auditor's report. As for the loan agreements between the government and the OPC, they refer to the government loans provided to OPC in 2006 and 2014 to support its redevelopment plans and the Tai Shi Wan development project. The government then disclosed to FC comprehensive information about the loan amounts, related interest, date of borrowing and repayment, etc. In 2020 and 21, the FC's approval was secured for revising the terms of the two loans. Hong Kong Disneyland Resort is an important tourism infrastructure jointly invested by the government and the Walt Disney Company. The resort has been reporting the key operating and financial results to the panel on economic and development on an annual basis since the fiscal year 2008. Also, when the government submitted funding applications to the FC on the development of on the expansion of the resource in the past, the government clearly sets out the investment details and so on. 3. The government has always been open and transparent regarding information on land development projects. For example, in handling in situ land exchange applications in new development areas in the northern metropolis under the enhanced conventional new town approach, the government would announce information of designated sites open for application, as well as the application requirements and criteria, including the site area and land premium, etc. When the government disposes sites through open tender, it would publish the tender documents and information on successful tenderers and tendered amount. Separately, to take forward the development of the Northern Metropolis and Khao Yi Chau artificial islands, the government is examining diverse and flexible implementation approaches. However, even if in the end the government adopts approaches other than open tender, such as direct land grant, we will uphold the principles of openness and transparency by explaining the considerations behind and disclosing the specific requirements contained in the land leases and other relevant documents, as well as the land premium received. Thank you. Mr. Paul TSE. President, I'm not actually focusing on the details of individual projects. It's just that it's unfortunate for the Secretary that a few of the projects involved his bureau. But more importantly, I'm talking about the monitoring mechanism. Now, in Article 13 of the Basic Law, says that this council is responsible for approving public expenditure and budget and so on. Okay. Do we have more monitoring? That's Article 73 of the Basic Law, actually. So anyway, our important function is to examine and approve budgets, and also examine government spending. Now, the Secretary said the government is not just a regulator; it's also a promoter and facilitator. But then, for this council, we are to monitor the government. Now, the Chubby Hearts, the event, there are so many different views about it, but then you say we're not allowed to look into the information, then how do we play our role of being a monitor? Perhaps in confidentiality, you could allow us to read the information. So otherwise, we are not able to perform this very important function we have. Secretary. Now, at the start of my main reply, I said that we've been actively facilitating the work of lecture and providing sufficient information to address members' questions. That's always been our position. That's always been what we've been trying to do. Of course, we're fully aware that the government the LegCo is here to monitor the work of the government, including our spending. So when we go to the Finance Committee to apply for funds for individual projects, we will certainly follow the established procedure to give details of the project. And for all LegCo members, if they think we are not providing sufficient information at Finance Committee meetings, they can always put questions to us. As to how far do we go in terms of playing the role of monitoring, it really depends on different cases. As the member pointed out in his question, maybe there are certain agreements where it's possible for us to show to members, but it's hard to generalize, really. But I think what's important is that we want to do our job well, and we want projects to succeed. So we have to consider the actual circumstances. In some cases, we may need to check very closely, and then in some cases, we may want to leave it to the private sector. So when it comes to monitoring by the council, it's also about what our functions are, what we've done, and whether we have done our job. And then we could, of course, actively work with the council. So we will try to provide information to address your questions as far as possible. But then sometimes there's commercially sensitive information. It may not be desirable to disclose the information in full. Now, can we allow members to peruse the information in confidence? Well, it depends also. Maybe in the agreement we sign with another party, there may be a clause that whether the information could be disclosed to a third party. So it's about proper communication with the other party before we can decide whether to share the information with members. But of course, we'll try to provide as much information as possible. Mr. Vincent, look. Thank you, President. Now, in the reply, the government said that the football match organizers withdrawn their application, so they're not using public funds. They're not using the M-mark system. But then, the M-mark is an intangible asset of us as a capital of mega events. The organizer did use the M-mark to bring to attract audience to come to the scheme. Even though now they've withdrawn the application, they've used our M-mark. Now you say you're going to take stock of the experience. Do you have any specific measures or any new mechanism in mind so that in future you make sure that for all mega events, big or small, there won't be another failure like what we've seen? So apart from being a regulator, then you surely will be playing the role of promoter and facilitator. Secretary. Well, in Hong Kong, we are trying to take forward many mega events. And mega events may be of different nature. Some may be actually staged by the government, some funded by the government, some may be privately run staged projects. And in the course of that, maybe they need government assistance, such as with crowd management, traffic management, or maybe we help with securing venue and so on. Now, but then whether the project actually could take off, it really depends on the private sector. We will try to help as far as we could. But is it possible that for every single project, they could proceed as fully scheduled or planned or expected? It may not be the case. So when we try to promote mega events, or when we try to promote the mega event economy, we have to see what role the government can play. So our role is to try to help them in making the project possible. And we'll see how far we could do in helping in that respect. But then in some cases, maybe we're not able to do much more. So how are we going to do a better job in future? Now, together with the Mega Sports Events Committee, we're going to review the case that just happened. And then in the past year, of course, we've received different applications. We've gained some experience. So we see what we can do in terms of monitoring. For example, as the member pointed out, the event used our M-mark before. Now they withdrew the application. So how should we handle that? Because it's never happened before. Now, maybe the organizer didn't do a good job. Does it affect our M-mark system? But can we say impose penalty? Well, we don't know yet. That's why we need to do a review. But then we need to strike a balance. If there's over-regulation and some may think it's unreasonable, and that may be a deterrent to people trying to host these events, or they may not come forward to apply for the M-mark and the subsidy. As we mentioned in the main report, we want to bring more mega events to Hong Kong. We want these projects to succeed. Of course, we don't want to see the projects fail, and so we'll see what more the government can do to facilitate these projects, and that will be an important point we will look at in the review. Mr. Michael Tan. Thank you, President. Well, Secretary, these are commercial events, but then that involved much government subsidy. Even for the latest case, the organizer withdrew the map, but in the course of the event, the government gave much assistance. And more importantly, if the event didn't go well, it would affect our image. This is our intangible asset. It cannot be more important. You cannot just dismiss that, saying that there's commercial secret involved. Now, will the government consider this? Maybe in future, if you sign an agreement, you have to ask what the clauses are. For example, in this case, Messi is supposed to play for at least 45 minutes unless he's injured. So if a player is injured, and then there's this escape clause. So then there should be an escape clause within an escape clause, meaning what? So unless you have to be carried out, you can't even stand properly, or you're in hospital. Otherwise, that athlete must at least come and receive, come out and tell the public what his injury is. Now, there are people spending thousands of dollars to come and see him. He wouldn't even come up to the stadium. So would you consider something like that? Secretary. Well, President, we want mega events to be staged here. So that's why we try to facilitate and coordinate as far as possible. And we may even provide matching grant or subsidy as appropriate. And when it comes to regulation, we won't first think, something's going to go wrong, and so we have all these escape clauses, because then people may be deterred. They won't even stage the event here. So we need to strike a balance. Now, of course, when it comes to information, the more the better, the more transparent the better. But then it depends on the actual circumstances. Sometimes when that's too much information, it's hard for the public to fully grasp all the information. And they won't be able to follow all the clauses if there are too many. So that's why we need to do a good job ourselves. So, apart from facilitating and coordinating the work, we also have to see how far the government should go as a regulator. And then for mega events, as some members pointed out, do we need more transparent publicity? Now, for football matches, if players are injured, they can't play, it actually happens often and is quite acceptable. But then in this case, of course, it's a question of whether accept the excuse that the player is injured, and people may have different views. Which part of your question has not been answered? The Secretary has not answered my question as to whether you include an escape clause within an escape clause. Does it mean that because the player is injured, he could just sit through the match? Secretary, well, you can have 10 more escape clauses if you want. But at the end of the day, it's about striking a balance. So the question is not so much about the escape clause, but rather it's about how we could improve our system in future so that we can have a good mega events in Hong Kong. We don't want to see another failure. Thank you.
Question number 3, Ms. Connie Lam. Thank you, President. It is learned that at present about 700,000 people in Hong Kong suffer from diabetes, meaning that 1 out of every 10 people is a diabetic patient, with more than 1/5 of patients under the age of 40. In addition, it has been reported that according to a study, the youngest diabetic patient in Hong Kong is only 3 years old. In this connection, will the government inform this council 1. Given that diabetic patients have become increasingly younger, whether the government will review if the current approach of health education alone is effective in raising the awareness of diabetes prevention among parents, adolescents, and children, hence making adolescents and children reduce the consumption of drinks with a high sugar content, and if it will, of the details too, as it has been reported that the number of diabetic patients seeking consultation from the hospital authority has risen in recent years, whether the government has projected the additional manpower and resources required in the public healthcare system in the current financial year and each of the next 5 financial years to cope with the situation. And 3. Whether it will, from the perspective of prevention is better than cure, consider following the practice of countries such as France, the UK, Denmark, and Norway, and our country in introducing a sugar levy to raise the prices of sugary drinks, so as to dampen the desire of the public, especially children, to buy such drinks, and subsidize public healthcare expenditure with the revenue from the sugar levy. Thank you, President. Secretary for Health. President, while Hong Kong's various health indices rank among the best in the world, just like many developed places, non-communicable diseases, including diabetes, have exerted heavy pressure on citizens' health and social development. In 2018, the government announced the Towards 2025 Strategy and Action Plan to prevent and control non-communicable diseases in Hong Kong, which focuses on 4 NCDs, including diabetes, and 4 shared behavioral risk factors, namely unhealthy diet, physical inactivity, tobacco use, and harmful use of alcohol. In consultation with relevant bureaus and departments, my consolidated reply to the questions raised by Ms. Lam So-wai is as follows. 1. Diabetes is classified into type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is caused by the damage to insulin-producing cells and associated with hereditary factors, immune system, or environmental factors. Type 2, in general, diabetes diagnosed in children and adolescents is primarily type 1. So children with diabetes at the age of 3 fall under that category. And type 2 is caused by the resistance to insulin inside the body. Apart from hereditary factors, it is also related to unhealthy eating habits, obesity, or lack of physical activity. In general, it is prevalent among adult diabetic patients. According to the results of the population health surveys in recent years, there is no significant rise in diabetes diagnosis among individuals aged 15 to 44, and also no trend of persons suffering from diabetes at a young age. The relevant figures are at Annex 1. And nevertheless, the government has been promoting public awareness of diabetes prevention through a life course and environment-based approach. Measures targeted at adolescents and children include 1. In the 2009-10 school year, the DH, in collaboration with the Education Bureau, launched the eSmart School Accreditation Scheme under the eSmart at School Hong Kong campaign, which encourages families, school, and the community to work together to motivate and help all primary schools in Hong Kong to formulate and implement healthy eating school policy. In view of the positive outcome, the DH launched the Start Smart at School.Hong Kong campaign to promote healthy eating and physical activity among preschoolers across the territory since 2012. At present, about 300 primary schools and special schools, i.e. about 45% of the total number in Hong Kong, and about 640 kindergartens and childcare centers, i.e. about 60% of the total number in Hong Kong, are participating in the campaigns. 2. In the 2018-19 school year, the DH launched the Healthy Drinks at School Charter. Participating kindergartens and childcare centers have committed to encourage young children to drink water, avoiding to provide drinks with added sugar or with a relatively high sugar content. The number of participating schools has increased from around 380 at the beginning to around 480 in the 2022-23 school year. 3. The District Health Centre, DHC, and DHC Expresses, with the goal of having all districts in Hong Kong covered, attained drawn-up personalized health plan for citizens. Measures targeted at adolescents and children include weight management and group classes and healthy diet, and providing health education, health risk assessment, dietary education focusing on low salt, low sugar at schools and other outreach activities. 4. To lead a healthy lifestyle is one of the 7 learning goals of school curriculum set by the EDB. Students learn about healthy lifestyle and diet, including diabetes prevention, through different subjects. Apart from the above measures, the Student Health Service also checks enrolled students' body weight during annual health assessments, provides counseling and health advice to students with suboptimal weight, and makes referrals to specialists if necessary. The relevant data are at Annex 2. Physical activity is effective, in fact, in achieving and maintaining an appropriate body weight while preventing diabetes. Around 20% of the students are overweight. The DH will step up promotion at the school level through the whole school health program to help children develop a habit of regular physical activity. The government has also been encouraging members of the public to actively manage their own health through the eHealth mobile app. You can, through the eHealth app, to input information on your body weight and blood pressure and check on your own health condition. This year, under the government's public health promotion program, a health challenge platform will be launched to encourage students to be more physically active. 2. About figures. In 2022, there were about 540,000 diabetes patients in the HA, with an annual growth rate at 4 to 5%, which is similar to past years. While the HA will not make assessment of manpower and resource requirements regarding individual diseases, but poor control of diabetes may lead to various complications, and diabetes treatment requires various resources. So there might be complications. Say, for example, over 50% of incident cases of end-stage renal failure are attributable to diabetes, and more than 30% of diabetic patients are diagnosed with diabetic retinopathy. And over 16% of diabetic patients had a history of coronary heart diseases. So effective control of diabetes can therefore reduce the need for other specialist services arising from complications of diabetes. To achieve the goal of early prevention, early identification, and early treatment, the government launched the Chronic Disease Co-Care Pilot Scheme, CDCC Pilot Scheme, to provide subsidized screening services in the private health care sector to Hong Kong residents aged 45 or above with no medical history of diabetes or hypertension. As at the 15th of February 2024, so 3 years into the launch of the program, more than 20,000 citizens have participated in the program, and more than 9,000 participants have completed the screening, where the family doctors have explained the results and arranged appropriate health management plans for them. More than 3,000 participants, i.e. 30%, were diagnosed with pre-diabetes, diabetes or hypertension. On the whole, the government will conduct regular planning and projection exercises for healthcare professional manpower and project the demand systematically. 3. And according to information provided by EEB, the government has all along been making reference to the measures taken by different regions in promoting healthy eating and prevention of diabetes, and has noted that different local and overseas stakeholders have different views on the effectiveness of introducing tax measures to achieve the goal of reducing public's sugar intake from food. In fact, getting the public to accept less salt and sugar cannot be achieved overnight and requires comprehensive information dissemination, active promotion by the government, and participation of the industry. Regarding food information, according to relevant legislation, food claiming to be low sugar must contain no more than 5 grams of sugar per 100 grams or millimeters of food. According to a survey conducted by an academic institution commissioned by the Committee on Reduction of Salt and Sugar in Food in 2022, the public had improvement in terms of awareness and action towards reduction of salt and sugar when compared with that in 2021, showing some positive impact from our promotion work. The committee, in conjunction with various departments, to continue to enhance our publicity and education efforts to further raise the public's awareness and action towards reduction of salt and sugar. Ms. Connie So. Thank you. Well, you know my background. We support promoting primary health care, and I'm involved in the services of the HA, and my first job was at the United Christian Hospital. My question is related to groups that I have served for a number of years. I have a lot of diabetic patients who are friends. Well, diabetes will not lead to mortality, but its complications can lead to death. Say, for example, coronary heart diseases, retinopathy, and so on. So in Kwun district and also on Hong Kong Island, I've seen many cases like those. So we're talking about the primary healthcare blueprint, and I am raising this because I come from a healthcare background. Now, we don't have any figures on the money spent on treating diabetic patients. So I hope that going forward, the government or the FS can consider imposing a sugar levy. It can increase the revenue for the Hong Kong government. It can also lessen the public expenditure in hospital authorities. So our patients should not then have to visit the geriatric specialists and so on. And then also for young children, if we can start educating the young children and their parents at an early stage, then it will help. Maybe we should also ban sugary food and also impose a sugar levy. Then, well, the children can lead a healthy life. So it's not only Cheung Kwan O who should be turned into a safe city, but every district in Hong Kong should be turned into a safe district. I'm in my middle age. I hope that we can care for our young children from a start age. What about the sugar content in milk formula? And also, fortune cookies also come with a high sugar content. Will it lead to diabetes? I am not a diabetic patient, and neither is any family member of mine a diabetic patient. So, should we be putting a ban on sugary food? Should we be imposing a sugar levy? Thank you, President. Thank you, Ms. Lam, for your question. And I appreciate Ms. Lam's concern for the health of people in Hong Kong. Now, about sugar levy. Whenever the government devises a policy, we must come with good evidence showing that the policy will be effective before we implement it. And sugar levy will have great implications on the society as a whole. We have taken a look at different countries' practices, but then countries with a sugar levy have not been effective in reducing the intake of sugary drinks. And school children's situation has not been improved as well. So if we just impose a sugar levy, it will not be very effective. Let's imagine this. Well, the diabetes patient will be advised by the doctor not to eat anything which is sugary, and also the diabetes patient is advised not to, say, eat fruits and other food as well. So we want to do the best job. We should not just be imposing a sugar levy. We should promote a healthy eating lifestyle. We should encourage people to do physical exercise. So maybe students should be arranged to take a longer PE class in schools. If young children have a healthy eating habit, then they will be able to refrain from eating sugary food like fortune cookies and so on. So that's why the DH has come up with a health plans encouraging healthy eatings for school children. So we also wanted to start education from an early age. And sugar levy is different from tobacco levy. We also need sugar in our body. But then for tobacco, well, tobacco is all harmful to the body. So that's why literature worldwide shows that tobacco levy is effective. But then for sugar levy, the results may differ from country to country. So that's my response. Mr. Rock Tan, President, about from e-health. So the government in relation to the elderly, low-income families, and ethnic minority groups which are at risk groups, consider conduct territory-wide screening services and counseling services, and also other follow-up services. Thank you. Under the CDCC pilot scheme, we are launching a territory-wide screening services for residents aged 45 or above with no medical history of diabetes or hypertension can come to our DHC and seek out a family doctor to help them. We have a subsidy scheme. Why 45 is the age criterion? Because we note that after a person has turned 45, that their health condition may deteriorate rapidly. And for low-income families and elderly persons, we are talking to the HA to chart out the best positioning as far as healthcare services for them is concerned. Mr. Deacon Chiu, well, diabetes is one of the most prevalent chronic diseases in Hong Kong. In the main reply, the Secretary mentions a number of actions done by the government, say preventing or discouraging tobacco use and so on. Well, in the past few years, many teams from universities have conducted a number of researches which are breaking new grounds, and they have made breakthroughs in their researches, and they have published a number of essays, and I have come across a number of very good research projects, and in the foreseeable future, diabetes can be cured. So apart from the actions mentioned by the Secretary, what more will the government do? We have new drugs as well. So will the Bureau work together with the INT sector to do more clinical researches, to launch new drugs, and so on? Will we be able to eliminate diabetes altogether in the future? Thank you, Member, for your question. Well, we see eye to eye with Mr. Chiu. There have been a lot of innovations in the healthcare sectors, and there are many new drugs treating diabetes as well. But let's take a step backward. We want to prevent diabetes altogether. So IT can help. There might be new medical equipment which can continuously monitor the blood glucose level in the body. So we try to popularize such medical. If it is the medical equipment is too costly, then it might not help too much. So we are talking to the sector on this, and also big data. There are quite a number of diabetic patients in Hong Kong. We have a lot of data on these patients. So we can come up with risk prediction models from these data. We can make projections on when a diabetic patient will end up with a renal failure if the diabetes is not controlled properly now. So we would like to share more data with diabetic patients to encourage them to take more action to lessen the severity of the disease. Dr. David Lam, diabetes is a serious problem. 1 out of 10 citizens in Hong Kong has diabetes, and type 2 diabetes is very related to our daily habits. So I'm qualified for the CDCC pilot scheme. I can go to the DHC and the family doctor and to have screening for my blood glucose and blood pressure. I have to pay $150. Is it worth it? Now, from the perspective of the citizen, maybe I would think that I am too busy and I have to pay. So maybe you can offer them a free service altogether, and get them to get tested. And if there is a problem, then only then will they be asked to pay. themselves. So would that approach be able to encourage more of our citizens to do the screening? Dr. Lam, thank you for your very good suggestion. Let me give you some figures. After the CDCC pilot scheme has been launched, 20,000 citizens have participated, 9,000 participants have completed the screening, and 3,000 participants were diagnosed with some problems. Who came forth? Well, more females than males were coming forward. Here, we have more males and females in this chamber. Well, that's similar to what we find out in other healthcare scenarios. Men tend not to prefer seeing a doctor, so maybe we should do more among the men. And then secondly, some patients, well, not many of them, know that they have diabetes or hypertension, and they're advised to see a doctor, and they refuse to do so. Well, they pay $150 to do the screening, but then when a problem is found, they don't want to see a doctor. The DHC will continue to follow up on such cases, and we hope that ultimately they will see a doctor and try to improve their own daily habits. So should screening be offered free of charge? This is to be queried. But we understand Dr. Lam's thinking. They lower the cost, the scheme, the people will come forth to do the screening. So this, anyway, we'll consider your suggestion.
Question number 4, the Honorable Leung Man-kwong. Thank you, President. The Hong Kong Housing Authority, or HA, has indicated that among the cases of suspected breach of the live-in requirements for subsidized sale flats, SSFS, it has handled recently a case involved a flat which had been resold, and its owner has surrendered to HA all the profits earned from the resale of the flat. In addition, it has been reported that in the past there were a number of cases in which SSF owners resold their unmodified flats. In this connection, will the government inform this council, 1, of the number of cases of suspected breach of the live-in requirements for SSFS followed by reselling such flats, which are being followed up by HA, and whether HA will consider setting up a reporting mechanism. 2, for SSF owners breaching the living-in requirements of SSFS followed by reselling their flats, in addition to requiring such owners to surrender all the profits earned, whether the government has other ways to follow up and whether it will consider increasing the penalties. And 3, for SSFs bought first-hand which have not been occupied and renovated, whether the government will consider stepping up efforts to provide guidelines for real estate intermediaries in respect of handling the purchase and sale of such flats. Secretary for Housing. President, to ensure proper utilization of precious and limited public housing resources, owners of SSFS are required to comply with the live-in requirements. According to the agreement for sale and purchase ASP made between the owner of SSF for the purchase of the flat and the Hong Kong Housing Authority, the flat concerned shall be occupied by the owner and all members of the family named in the application form for the purchase of the flat. If the owner or any family member ceases to actually or permanently live in the flat without a prior written consent of HA, HA has a right to require the owner to assign the flat back to HA at the cost and expenses of the owner. HA has been taking stringent follow-up actions on cases of suspected breaches of the live-in requirements and complaints received. HA would take appropriate action after investigation and with regard to the circumstances of the case. If the owner is found to have breached any of the requirements, HA will not approve the application from the parties concerned for the issuance of a Certificate of Availability for Sale, CAS, under the HOS Secondary Market Scheme. Even if a CAS has been issued, HA also has a right to revoke it, so that the owner concerned will not be able to sell the flat under the SMS Secondary Market Scheme. At the same time, purchaser should also note that if the original owner is in breach of the live-in requirements, HA will not issue the letter of nomination in respect of the flat concerned, and both the purchaser and vendor will need to bear the risk that the sale and purchase cannot be completed. Having regard to the special circumstances of some individual cases, for example, the owner is hospitalized due to sickness and is to take care of a family member with serious health problems, rendering it impracticable for him to handle declaration and removal issues, HA may withhold the enforcement action for non-compliance of the requirements under the ASP and at the same time require the owner to move in the flat concerned within 60 days from the date of HA's notification in order to comply with the requirements under ASP. HA will also monitor the living condition of the flat concerned to ensure the breach has been remedied. Amongst some recent cases, there was a flat which was being resold in the secondary market, and the owner was in breach of the living requirements. According to the ASP, HA has a right to require the owner to assign the flat back to HA. After receiving the demand from HA to buy back the flat concerned, the owner had, on his volition, proposed to surrender to HA all the profits obtained from the sale of the flat, and HA accepted the proposal in handling the matter after considering the specific circumstances of the case, including minimizing the impact on the uninformed purchaser. Apart from the follow-up action on suspected cases and complaints, HA has also reminded stakeholders of the requirements concerned through various ways and means. For owners, the living requirements have been set out in the application guide and the ASP of relevant sale exercises. Applicants of SSFs are required to sign a declaration at the time of flat selection to declare and undertake that they will notify all members of the family named in the application form to comply with the living requirements. SSF's owners are fully aware that they are required to comply with the living requirements. Recently, HA has also sent a letter to owners who have recently been issued with a CAS reminding them of the living requirements. In addition, in the press release issued last month in respect of the flat sale arrangements for HOS 2023, HA has specifically reminded the owners, purchasers, and licensees for estate agency work of the requirements concerned. The Housing Department will continue to step up publicity and remind stakeholders, including sending out the details of the living requirements and sales and application documents, HD or HA's designated websites, flat selection letter, notice for completion of sale and purchase, letters related to the application for CAS, etc. In addition, HA is in close liaison with the Estate Agents Authority, EAA, on this matter. EAA has issued a letter to its licensees on 26th of July 2024 to remind all licensing again not to participate in sale of SSFs where the owners have breached the living requirements. EAA also reminds agents and educates industries to act cautiously and prudently, as well as be mindful of the living requirements in handling transactions concerning SSFs. Otherwise, they may be subject to disciplinary actions such as admonishment, reprimand, fines, suspension of license, or even revocation of license, etc. If an estate agent participates in the sale of a flat and the purchaser subsequently suffers from losses or damages because of the breach of the living requirement by the owner, the estate agent concerned may be sued by the purchaser in civil action for failing to exercise due care and due diligence to protect the purchaser's interest. EAA will also watch out for advertisements issued by licensees regarding SSFs and spot check whether suspected breaches of the living requirements of SSFs are involved. If HA discovers cases that violate the living requirements and involved estate agents are suspected of breaching EAA's Code of Ethics, EAA will investigate. I reiterate that SSFs owners must comply with terms and conditions as set out in the ASP entered into with HA for the purchase of the flats. Once again, I'll remind purchasers and vendors of SSFs and estate agents to be careful and mindful about the concerned requirements. Thank you, President. Mr. Leung Man-kwong. From the Secretary's reply and the measures adopted by HD, including those mentioned in the main reply for monitoring and also enforcement, and also extending the alienation restriction period, it shows that they have done what they can to ensure that precious SSFs will not be used for speculation. But in many of the previous cases, they were really exposed by owners themselves. They put photos on social media, or maybe real estate agents have inadvertently let out that the flats were not modified. Now, if the owners, purchasers, and real estate agents act in a low-profile manner, it's not possible for HA to expose those cases, and that is a loophole for purchasers and also owners. So in addition to enhancing investigation and reminder to EAA and real estate agents, now will the administration consider the reporting mechanism for abuse of public rental housing. And when owners apply for a CAS, will there be documents to prove that the owner has lived in the flat, so as to ensure that the flat has not been unoccupied for a long time? Thank you. HD and HA colleagues have noted various cases. For instance, there is a committee to crack down on abuse of PRH. They patrol online information. If there is information that an HOS flat is available for rental and premium has not been paid up, then we do follow up such cases. We have such cases in hand. Of course, we are grateful to cases reported to us by informants or by the media. We take very serious action to follow up. As for before issuing a CAS, we are thinking of additional measures. For instance, inspection of the units before a CAS is issued, whether we can spot signs of the flat having been occupied in the past, and we will see whether we can enhance our gatekeeping role in this regard. Mr. Chen Yong. Thank you, President. JB and also Mr. Lam So-wai have proposed measures to resell or to rent HOS flats. Now, there are various cases reported in the media. Will the department remind owners once again to ensure that they will not breach the requirements, so that for those who are interested in the TPS tenant purchase scheme, they can have a better understanding and the scheme can benefit the public more? Secretary, thank you. Whether we're talking about the tenant purchase scheme or home purchase scheme or green farm subsidized home ownership scheme, we have the same living requirements, and we hope that both owners and also vendors and purchasers can be mindful. We will include all such information in relevant documents to ensure that our SSFs can ensure that they are lived in by buyers. Mr. Chen Hock-Fung. For the case concerned, the government has recovered the profits obtained from the sale of the flat, but the owner might have already breached Section 26 of the Housing Ordinance, and that is false representation. So I'd like to know whether there will be any follow-up action to prevent future occurrence. Secretary, thank you. I cannot comment on details of a particular case. When it comes to documents and representations submitted to us, whether there's been any false representation, our colleagues will watch out for them, and we will take follow-up action when there is any false representation. For this case, the purchase was in progress and the purchaser was uninformed. Given the special circumstances of the case, we did not want to affect the purchaser, and then the owner took the initiative, that is to offer to surrender to HA all the profits obtained from the sale of the flat. So I think this has achieved our objective of ensuring the SSFS will not be a tool for speculation. So that was how we handled the case. Mr. Dominic Lee. Mr. Leung Man-kwong, in his main question, asked the administration the number of such cases being handled, and also where violation was involved. There was no figures in the reply. All right, I'd like to know for the past year, if you don't have statistics for the past 5 years, how many such cases, confirmed cases of violation of the living requirements have been spotted by HA? Thank you. We're handling 15 such cases, some of which are being followed up on, including the case I mentioned in my main reply, where the profits obtained from the sale of the flat has been surrendered to HA, and in some of the cases we have given a period of 60 days for the owners to comply with the living requirements. But in these cases, there are indeed a situation where the owner is seriously ill or where he has to look after a family member with serious health problems. We are compassionate when it comes to these cases. Ms. Nexi Lam, thank you. I'd like to ask how you can prevent further incidents. So in issuing a CAS or letter of nomination, are you going to conduct surprise home visits to understand the real conditions of the flats concerned? And if you do not take such action, if you just rely on reports by informants or the media, then you cannot prevent such violations. Under Section 22 of the Housing Ordinance, Cap 2A3, officers of the HD are already authorized to enter these flats for inspection. So what is your view on that? Secretary, thank you. Yes, Ms. Lam is very correct. We are thinking that before we issue a CAS, we should do something, including conducting a home visit. Honestly speaking, in some of the cases, when we received a complaint, we noticed that there were neighboring units where even air conditioners had not been installed, and so such cases were recorded for follow-up action. Yes, we are thinking on how we can enhance our monitoring along this line. Dr. Johnny Ng. Now, if owners are selling such flats while breaching the living requirements, will you enhance the penalty on those real estate agents in order to deter such violations? Now, we maintain very close cooperation with the EAA. You might have read reports that real estate agents, as a marketing strategy, like to stress that a particular SSF flat is unmodified, and so it has never been occupied. When we notice such cases, we will refer them to EAA for follow-up. But we have seen cases where the description by the real estate agent was not accurate. We went to see the flat and found that it was once occupied. It's just a marketing means to make the flat more attractive. But of course, that is some untrue representation or description of the flat, and EAA will discuss with its members and issue letters to its members to ensure that in handling cases, they must describe those flats accurately. If need be, EAA will also issue warning letters to such real estate agents. Mr. Dominic Lee, thank you. Well, a huge public money is involved in the sale of such flats, and the media may be whistleblowers, and also Mr. Chen asked whether there can be a reporting mechanism set up. Can the administration be more proactive? Now, for instance, in some flats, the utility meters not can show that it's not being occupied. So will the administration take the initiative to investigate such cases? Thank you, President. In replying to another question, I did mention that we have a task force to combat abuse of PRH. They conduct media patrol. They have identified both SSFs and PRH flats. They are using the same way to obtain useful information. But we understand that for PRH, abuse of PRH flats, we understand that the public have high expectations for us. We will focus our resources on cracking down on abuse of PRH. After all, we have grassroots really waiting for PRH to improve their conditions of living. So we will focus our resources on cracking down on abuse of PRH flats. If in the process we identify abuse of SSFS and if we receive complaints, we will follow up very seriously. Ms. Nexi Lam. Thank you, President, and thank you, Secretary. I'd like to know how you enforce the requirement for the owner to live in a flat permanently or continuously. Now, if the owner has moved out of Hong Kong, is it a breach? Will the owner be required to reassign the flat to HA in 2023? Para 18.4.3, it is said that if any family member is no longer living in the flat permanently for whatever reasons without the prior consent of the HA, then the owner will be required to assign the flat back to HA. Secretary, thank you. Ms. Nixie Lam read out the correct paragraph of the form, whether someone is living in a flat continuously or permanently. Now, there are different circumstances. A person may be hospitalized because of illness, and he may have to take care of a family member who is seriously ill. We will be compassionate in handling these cases. For people who have moved out of Hong Kong, for sure, the persons concerned have left Hong Kong permanently, and they are required to assign the flat back to HA at the original price. Dr. Johnny Ng, SSF secondary market can help the turnover of our public housing resources. So will you require these owners to assign the flat back to HA? Thank you. We have a secondary market for SSFs. In the last policy address, you might recall that we have extended the guarantee period for mortgage repayment from 30 to 50 years. This is a measure to help to vitalize the secondary market for SSFS. We understand that many young families are within this income bracket. So revitalizing this market can help these families. And there is also a quota. Well, if the mortgage guarantee period is extended, then the quota may have to be enlarged. We will take note of recent transactions and make appropriate adjustments. Thank you.
Question 5, Dr. Kennedy Wong. President, the government has conducted a number of studies on the implementation of an electronic road pricing scheme or ERP scheme in Hong Kong and has proposed launching an electronic road pricing pilot scheme in Central and its adjacent areas. In this connection, will the government inform this council? 1. As the government has indicated that it will determine when and how to implement the pilot scheme in the light of the traffic conditions of the adjoining roads of the 3 road harbour crossings and of Central upon adjustment of the tolls of the 3 RHCs, whether the government has assessed the effectiveness of the implementation of the time-varying toll plan for the 3 RHCs in alleviating traffic congestion in Central. 2. Given that the government set up an international expert panel in 2020 to give advice on the implementation of the pilot scheme in Central, of the advice given by the expert panel and how the government has adopted such advice, and 3. Regarding the implementation of the pilot scheme in Central and its adjacent areas, whether the government has an implementation timetable and roadmap, and whether it has projected the vehicular flows and the revenue after the implementation of the scheme. If so, the details; if not, the reasons for that. Secretary for Transport and Logistics. President, our reply to the question raised by Dr. Kennedy Wong is as follows. The government has previously proposed taking forward an ERP pilot scheme in Central and its adjacent areas with the aim of alleviating traffic congestion in the locality. The Transport Department established an international expert panel in 2020 to advise the government on the following, including 1. enhancing complementary measures to encourage motorists and passengers to make good use of public transport or enter the charging area during off-peak hours. 2. Considering providing exemptions or concessions for certain vehicles, such as giving exemptions for those only passing through Central. And 3. Putting more emphasis on the continued use of a multi-pronged approach to address traffic congestion in Central and its adjacent areas when formulating the publicity and public engagement strategy. In this connection, with a view to reducing congestion caused by illegally parked vehicles in Central, the TD has been collaborating with the Hong Kong Police Force to put into use an automatic traffic enforcement system, or ATES, at Queen's Road Central on a trial basis since 2022 through utilizing video analytics, artificial intelligence, and automatic number plate recognition technologies to analyze vehicle movements in real time, identify traffic contraventions, and record relevant cases of roadside traffic contraventions and the license plate numbers of offending vehicles. The ATES aims to strengthen deterrence and reduce congestion in the subject road section. At present, the TD and the police force are reviewing the effectiveness of the ATES. Also, in order to further divert the traffic heading for the Central and Western District, the TD has suitably adjusted the traffic signal timings at the junctions of Connaught Road West and Eastern Street to ease the vehicle flow in that area during peak hours. Furthermore, the TD is planning to construct an additional lane at the Hong Kong Island exit of the Western Harbour Crossing in the direction of Central and Sheung Wan to increase the capacity of the road section and smooth traffic flow at the tunnel exit and its surrounding areas. The TD is studying the plan with the relevant government departments. If it's proven to be technically feasible, the government will proceed with the detailed design and drop and implementation timetable. The government successfully implemented the HKE toll free flow tolling service at all government-tolled tunnels or control area in 2023, as well as implemented time-varying tolls at the 3 road harbour crossings to achieve traffic management objectives. The time-varying tolls at the 3 RHCs have been yielding positive results since they were implemented 2 months ago, thanks to the cooperation of motorists in adjusting their travel arrangements. The overall traffic queues and congestion at the tunnel entrances have been alleviated. We anticipated that motorists will still need time to adapt, including adjusting their commuting patterns, timing, and route choices, etc. The TD will have to continue to closely monitor the cross-harbour traffic situation, as well as the implication brought by time-varying tolls on the traffic flow and pattern in various districts on the northern part of Hong Kong Island, including Central. As such, there is no timetable for the implementation of ERP pilot scheme in Central and its neighboring areas before comprehensive data would be available for making a sound assessment of the impact of the implementation of time-varying tolls on traffic in Central. The ERP pilot scheme involves the conversion of currently free roads into tolled roads. The government must carefully assess the impact of the scheme on the traffic and the community. Apart from considering the effectiveness of various initiatives, including the effectiveness of the congestion relief arrangements mentioned above and the resulting changes in local traffic, it's necessary to take into account the impact of the scheme on road users and local residents, as well as the prevailing overall economic situation of the society. We'll adopt a multi-pronged approach to tackle traffic congestion in Central and its neighboring areas, including the proactive implementation of ATES in Central by making use of AI and ANPR technologies, as well as exploring other traffic management measures. The TD will further look into this in the context of the Traffic and Transport Strategy Study, which is currently underway, and outline the vision and feasibility of putting in place a smart traffic management system in the report to be completed by the end of 2025. Thank you, President. Dr. Kennedy Wong. President, in the government's reply, there's mentioning about the time-varying tolls arrangement and that results have been yielded since the implementation of the arrangement. We see that especially at tunnel exits in Central, congestion issues have been relieved. Perhaps because of the quicker vehicle flow in some of the roads in Kowloon, the congestion has been more serious. The government mentioned that it is now conducting the Traffic and Transport Strategy Study. I want to know whether the government will consider
extending the ERP pilot scheme to other areas, for instance, Kowloon and the new territories as it carries out the study? Secretary, I thank Dr. Wong for the question. As we mull over the ERP pilot scheme, we have to look at the traffic congestion situation in different localities. In a particular locality, if there is traffic congestion, it may be caused by different reasons. Common reasons include the following. First, we have to see if it is because there is a high demand for the use of roads and because there are many cars or vehicles. We also have to see whether it is possible to expand the road network in a particular locality. Also, road users may be competing for roads, for instance, in areas with loading-unloading activities. Is it congested? Are there enough car parking spaces? Do cars have to make detours to look for parking spaces? Also, we have to look at enforcement issues and management issues. For instance, in a particular district, there may be road repair works being carried out. All these will contribute to traffic congestion in a particular locality. Say if there is traffic congestion in a particular district, we have to examine the issue carefully and in detail and find out the crux of the problem before we can make arrangements to relieve the traffic congestion. The ERP scheme may be one of the solutions. However, I think we will have to look at particular situation of different districts to see whether we should adopt a multi-pronged approach to alleviate traffic congestion. Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. Thank you, President. The government has explored the ERP scheme for over 40 years. There have been 4 studies being carried out. Now that the time very tall plan has been implemented, it is technically feasible to roll out the ERP scheme. In his main reply, the Secretary said that we have to make careful assessment for the scheme. Also, the Secretary said the government has to adopt a multi-pronged approach to alleviate traffic congestion, including making use of technology and other traffic management measures. I think to reduce carbon emission and reduce air pollution are key factors that we have to take into account. Will the government consider, say for instance, when EV or clean energy transport enter charging areas, they will be charged? Will the government consider that, and what is the reason for that? Secretary, Mr. Chen mentioned that, say, if we roll out an ERP scheme, can we exempt the fee for clean energy transport? These are factors we will consider if we roll out the scheme. By 2035, we will not approve registration of vehicles that use traditional fuel. We have the 1-for-1 scheme now. For every 10 new vehicles, there are about 6 to 7 that are EVs or electric vehicles. We are moving towards the use of clean energy. Say if we roll out an ERP scheme, we will definitely consider adopting an exemption arrangement? Thank you. Mr. Martin Liu. The government said that traffic congestion has been eased since the diversion of traffic at the 3 road harbor crossings, and that the queue has been reduced by 1 km and 0.5 km respectively at the Cross Harbor Tunnel and Eastern Harbor Crossing. It is said that the ERP scheme may not be necessary with the diversion of traffic at the 3 road harbor crossings. We are seeing an increase in the number of licensed vehicles in Hong Kong, and there are also a number of black spots. Well, with reference to, say, Singapore and other places, we see that the ERP scheme can effectively control traffic flow in certain areas. Will the government go ahead with the ERP pilot scheme? Will you, for instance, at black spots such as Central or Hoi Yun Road in Kwun Tong, launch the ERP pilot scheme? Secretary, I thank member for the question. In my main reply, I mentioned that the ERP pilot scheme, if we are to implement it, we have to look at, for instance, in Central, the impact of time-varying toll arrangement. Members mentioned about some data just now. In the next oral question, I will provide more information. We are yet to be sure about the impact of time-varying toll plan on the traffic in Central. So we have to spend time to examine the situation carefully. I mentioned both in my main reply and in my response to the first supplementary question that if we are to go ahead with the ERP scheme, we will have to conduct a detailed analysis to examine the reasons of the traffic congestion. Can we ease traffic congestion through measures that we are already in place? We will have to conduct detailed analysis before we can come up with an appropriate solution. Thank you. Mr. Young. Thank you, President. To alleviate traffic congestion, I think implementing the ERP scheme is a feasible solution. However, we need the HKE free flow tolling system. A taxi driver told me that he was wrongly charged by the tolling system. The government kept saying that it would conduct various studies. So will you examine how to enhance the accuracy of the free flow tolling system? Secretary. Since the middle of last year, in May last year, we started implementing the free flow tolling system. The performance of the system has become more and more stable. Over 99% of the vehicles has applied for the HKE toll system, and over 90% of the vehicles are now using the system. At the early stage, when the system was first put in place, I heard different views from drivers of commercial vehicles or other types of vehicles. Well, especially taxi drivers see that we have been improving the tolling system. In different places in the city, we, for instance, in car parks or at MTR stations, we set up counters. And it is only recently that we have closed the counters. Any inquiries about the e-toll system can be referred to us, and we will continue to monitor the situation. No matter what stage we are at in the implementation of the tolling system, we will continue to monitor the performance of the system. Mr. Cheng Hop-fung, I think traffic congestion is common in major cities around the world. It's better to see congested areas in Hong Kong because during COVID pandemic there wasn't any congestion. The Central Wan Chai bypass and the diversion of traffic through among the 3 road harbor crossings are some ways to tackle traffic congestion. Secretary mentioned that there are lots of trucks or goods vehicles at the roadside to conduct loading and unloading activities. This is because there aren't enough parking spaces in Central. Has the TD done anything about it? Some of the roads are not fully used in Hong Kong, including Daver Road Central. There are only trams and buses currently running on Daver Road Central. Can these road sections be opened to taxis to divert traffic in Central? Has the government conducted any studies in this regard? Secretary, I thank Mr. Chen for the question. Is traffic congestion common or not? Well, as a secretary for Transport and Logistics, I don't dare answer this question. I can only tell you that when there is traffic congestion, we'll try our best to tackle it. This is the attitude that we adopt. As I responded to the question raised by Dr. Kennedy Wong, there are many causes for traffic congestions. Are they long-term causes or not? We have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. Member asked about loading and unloading activities carried out by goods vehicles. Well, we attach importance to this. This is because in Central, we see very well-established traffic network. There aren't many new roads. In terms of parking spaces, we are seeing a fixed number of parking spaces in the area. We've been adopting traffic management measures, and we keep reviewing these measures on whether there is room. For instance, on Daver Road Central, can we serve mainly users or residents in the area? Well, we have been liaising with district personality and relevant stakeholders. On loading and unloading activities, say if we can narrow the distance between shops, for instance, and locations where loading and unloading activities are carried out, that would be ideal. Some say that we should restrict people from carrying loading and unloading activities during daytime. Well, we'll have to look at people's lifestyle and habits in particular districts before we come up with a solution. We will talk to chambers of commerce, for instance, as well as district personality to learn more about the situation before coming up with a solution. Mr. Ronald Chang. Thank you, President. We have to increase deterrence by raising the fee. However, in core business districts, we're mostly seeing company cars or commercial vehicles. It's usually the company that pays the fees. Whether to implement ERP scheme, the government will have to look at how many private cars there are and how many commercial vehicles there are in particular districts. Will the government conduct studies on the ratio of company cars or commercial cars in particular districts to decide whether an ERP scheme would be helpful? Secretary. we look at vehicle movements and activities in particular districts. In my main reply, as well as in my responses to different members' questions, I mentioned that we're yet to see a very stable traffic situation. So we will conduct studies, but at the same time, we'll have to allow the new arrangements to stabilize before we examine the situation. Thank you.
Last question seeking an oral reply, Mr. Gary ZHANG. In order to ease the congestion at road tunnels, the government launched the HKE toll, the 633 fixed toll plan, and the time-varying toll plan last year. In this connection, will the government inform this council, first, of the respective average daily total vehicular flows of each of the 3 road harbor crossings before and after the implementation of the 633 plan and the time-varying toll plan, whether it has studied if the traveling modes of the public have changed due to the implementation of these 2 plans. Second, of the respective average percentages of the vehicular flows of each of the 3 RHCs during the morning and evening peak hours in the daily total vehicular flow before and after the implementation of the 633 plan and the time-varying toll plan, whether it has assessed if the effect of these 2 plans on diverting the traffic meets the policy objectives and expectations. And third, whether it has assessed if the actual vehicular flows and traffic speeds of various road tunnels have increased after the implementation of HKE toll. If it has assessed and the outcome shows an increase of the details, if they have not increased, the reasons for that. Secretary for Transport and Logistics. President, to rationalize cross-harbor traffic and better utilize tunnel capacity, the government adjusted in phases in 2023 the toll levels of the 3 road harbor crossings. They are the Western Harbor Crossing, the Cross Harbor Tunnel, and the Eastern Harbor Crossing, so that motorists could adapt to the toll adjustments gradually. The Transport Department has been closely monitoring the traffic condition after the implementation of the new tolls. With motorists changing their commuting patterns and cooperation, the new tolls have proved effective, and the overall traffic queue and congestion at the portals of the RHCs have been eased. My reply to the question raised by Mr. Gary ZHANG is as follows. On the takeover of the WHC on the 2nd of August 2023, the government implemented as the first step the 633 fixed toll plan at 3 RHCs. The toll for private cars using the WHC was reduced by 20% to $60, and those for the CHT and the EHC were adjusted to $30, while an all-day uniform toll of $25 was charged for cross-harbor taxis. The 633 fixed toll plan was an interim measure to reduce the toll differentials among the 3 RHCs for motorists to progressively adapt to the new tolling arrangement. After the implementation of the 633 fixed toll plan and the weekday daily cross-harbor traffic flow remained at about 260,000 vehicles two-way, which was similar to the traffic flow prior to its implementation. The traffic distribution at the 3 RHCs is as follows. The traffic flow at the WHC increased by roughly 18% to about 79,000 vehicles. Those at the CHT decreased by roughly 6% to about 105,000 vehicles, and those at the EHC remained more or less the same at about 76,000 vehicles. The outcome is in line with the government's expectation. Details are at Appendix 1. After the further resumption of normal socio-economic activities, the weekday daily cross-harbor traffic flow at the RHCs rose to about 270,000 vehicles in December 2023, comparable to the pre-pandemic level. In the next stage, the government implemented the time-varying tolls on the 17th of December 2023 to suppress and divert cross-harbor traffic during peak periods, thereby further improving the cross-harbor traffic. Under time-varying tolls, the tolls for private cars and motorcycles vary according to the time slots. On weekdays, the tolls for private cars range from $20 to $60. Taxis continue to be charged an all-day uniform toll of $25, while other commercial vehicles, including goods vehicles and buses, are charged an all-day flat rate of $50. After the time-varying tolls were put in place, the weekday daily cross-harbor traffic flow in January 2024 stayed at around 270,000 vehicles, which was on a par with the level before its implementation. The traffic distribution of the three RHCs is as follows. The traffic flow at the WHC increased by 12% to about 100,000 vehicles, while those at the CHT and the EHC decreased by 11% to about 95,000 vehicles and by 8% to about 73,000 vehicles respectively. Details are at Appendix 2. The above situation is in line with the government's expectation of making more efficient use of the tunnel capacity of the three RHCs and rationalizing the uneven distribution of cross-harbor traffic due to the toll differentials in the past. According to our data, the proportions of the peak period traffic flow to the daily traffic flow of the three RHCs before and after the implementation of the 633 plan, as well as after the implementation of the time-varying tolls were as follows: 41, 41, and 39% for the WHC, 31, 31, and 33% for the CHT, and 38, 39, and 40% for the EHC respectively. Among them, the increase in the proportion of peak period traffic at the CHT and the EHC was mainly due to a different base with greater reduction in off-peak traffic of both tunnels. Previously, the whole day traffic, including during off-peak hours at the CHT and the EHC, remained at a high level, whereas the capacity of the WHC outside the peak periods was not fully utilized. The new tolls have started to rationalize the unevenly distributed traffic among the three RHCs in the past. To further evaluate the effectiveness of the time-varying tolls, the TD has analyzed the overall cross-harbor traffic volume and the queue length during peak periods. In January 2024, the overall traffic at the three RHCs during peak periods decreased by an average of 3% on average. During the half-hour time span right before or after the peak periods, the overall cross-harbor traffic was up about 4% on average. This shows that some motorists have chosen to commute outside the peak hours, opting to cross the harbor at a lower toll level. On traffic queues, during peak periods, the queues at the CHT and the EHC were more than 1 kilometer and half a kilometer shorter respectively. Outside peak periods, which accounted for nearly 80% of the time of a day, the traffic at the three RHCs was generally smooth, including the CHT, where congestion used to occur very often. Non-cross-harbor traffic near the portals of the RHCs has also significantly improved. The above preliminary data show that the new tolls have achieved the policy objectives of rationalizing the cross-harbor traffic and better utilizing tunnel capacity, thus bringing benefits to private car drivers, the public transport trade, the commercial vehicle trade, cross-harbor bus riders, and the community as a whole. 3. The HKE toll-free flow tolling service enables motorists to pay tolls remotely with toll tags without having to stop or queue up at toll booths. This saves time and effort for motorists, giving them a smoother driving experience, whilst reducing weaving near the toll booths and thus improving the general traffic around toll plazas. The overall tunnel traffic flow after the implementation of HKE toll remained generally the same as before. For tunnels with traffic demand exceeding their capacity during peak periods, in general, there has not been any significant change in the overall car journey speed as a result of the implementation of HKE toll. Thank you, President. Mr. Gary ZHANG. Thank you. The main reply says that HKE toll has brought many benefits: more smoother traffic, less weaving, better experience. There are many benefits. But people commuting between the new territories and the urban areas are asking, why not have the HKE toll at the Tai Lam tunnel? It's a private tunnel. But when you look at the technical side, installing the HKE toll system or tolling shouldn't be a major issue when it comes to splitting the revenue. So my question is, has the government considered having HKE toll at Tai Lam tunnel as soon as possible? Or has the private operator of the tunnel refused? I want to find out more. Thank you. Secretary. Thank you. Starting from August last year, we had the HKE toll system at the three road harbor crossings. On 24th of December, the Chung Kwan O Tunnel, or 24th of October, Chung Kwan O Tunnel also adopted HKE toll. For Tai Lam Tunnel, we aim to have the system there for the next stage. We have the BOT model, build, operate, transfer. The franchise will expire in May next year. So that would become a government tunnel at that point. Once we take back the tunnel, we will put in place HKE toll. Looking back, the public and electoral members expressed concerns about HKE toll. With the attention and with the work of the Transport Department, we overcame operating issues and also the teething issues in the early days of the system. Now, people agree that HKE toll brings convenience. So we will follow the timeline I mentioned in having HKE toll in place. Mr. Frankie Yik. Secretary, in your main reply, you said the rationalization plan has met the policy goals. I congratulate the Secretary on this. During the deliberations of the Bills Committee, I proposed an amendment, and that is reducing the flat rate for commercial vehicles because the toll level affects the sectors I represent. This includes school coaches, red minibuses, and also goods vehicles for the logistics sector. There's a news report today. For red minibuses, they're in great difficulty. There used to be a minibus going between Wanchai and Shengshu. These routes, these minibuses are gone. This is the issue I want to raise. During the Bills Committee's discussion, I proposed once traffic patterns settle down, we need to review as soon as possible the tolls for commercial vehicles to make life easier for commercial vehicles and also raise the competitiveness of our logistics sector. My question for the Secretary is, when will we have the review, Secretary? Thank you. On the 27th of December, 17th of December, we put in place the time-varying tolls. The scheme has been running for just 2 months or so. The scheme is working as intended. The scheme will take more than 2 months for us to tell whether the traffic pattern has settled down. For some parts of the time, over the past 2 months, there were school holidays. We're still in a recovery. It will take more time for tourists to all return during the Lunar New Year. Visitor numbers return to the 2018 levels. The numbers are there. But the Lunar New Year isn't the same as regular work days. So it will take more time before we can tell how the scheme is working. So we're saying the time-varying tolls work, but we will look at the longer time horizon because there are cyclical seasonal changes to traffic patterns. I know Mr. Yik cares deeply about commercial vehicles. The toll is at $50. Now we have much reduced the toll at the WHC. But the $50 level is below the average tolls in the past. Mr. Yik also raised the issue about minibuses. Time-varying tolls have been around for 2 months or so, In July 2023, there were 17 routes. We now have fewer at 12. It's a route from Wan Chai to Chun Wan. It takes the WHC. After the time varying tolls are in place, minibuses taking the WHC pay a lower toll. So the route that's gone takes the WHC. The minibus fares have remained the same for some routes and gone up for others. For the WHC red minibuses, they have raised their fares. But the fare rise is not entirely because of the higher toll. There may be other commercial reasons. So let's give more time to the time varying tolls, and then we will review the toll levels for commercial vehicles. Mr. Chan Pui Leung. Thank you, President. The time varying tolls have been around for a short time, but I think it's working. For the CHT and the EHC, traffic volume has gone down. The volume has gone up at the WHC. But we get another issue now. The WHC used to see no congestion, but in the morning peak, when you go from Kowloon to Hong Kong Island at the toll plaza, there is congestion now. Is the Secretary aware of this? The reply says the traffic volume at the WHC is roughly 100,000 vehicles. How far away is that number from the capacity? And is there a way to fix the peak hour congestion at the WHC? Thank you. For the 3 RHCs in the peak hour, there's a particular peak hour, peak of the peak. The capacity of the 3 RHCs is at a certain level, and the traffic is at 126% of the design capacity of the RHCs. The congestion is easing at the RHCs. We have rationalize the tolls, and that helps suppress and divert the traffic. This means we don't get the traffic concentrating at the CHT and the EHC as we had in the past. This takes pressure off the CHT and the EHC. For me, I want to stress a point. Every RHC should serve its function. There are 3 lanes at the WHC, the CHT and the EHC, each with 2 lanes. The 3-lane tunnel can handle more traffic than 2-lane tunnels. In the past, we had toll differentials. So the WHC in the past could not fully serve its function. We're now returning the WHC to its original position. There are 7 lanes in total over the 3 tunnels. They cannot cope with our current demand. So we have traffic management measures. This means, despite the overwhelming of the tunnels, we want to minimize the impact. We want to minimize the traffic impact. We now see the effect of the new scheme, as I said in the main reply. Let's give it more time. Let's wait till the traffic pattern settles down. And then we can review what measures to take about the 3 RHCs. And then we will update the electrical on this. Dr. Lo Wai-kwok. Thank you, President. Our RHCs adopt free flow tolling. Tolls are adjusted. We have time varying tolls. Taxis are subject to the flat rate of $25. Commercial vehicles, $50 across all 3 RHCs. The new scheme is working. During the Bills Committee's discussion, I argued it makes sense to have a uniform rate for commercial vehicles because commercial vehicles usually charge a much higher toll at the WHC. But when you have $50 for all commercial vehicles regardless of size, that isn't fair. $50 is a lot for minibuses and light goods vehicles, so can we have a 2-tier system? $25 and $50. For smaller commercial vehicles, let's charge $25. For larger vehicles, $50. Just then, Mr. Frankie has already asked a similar question. The Secretary may say there may be a review down the road. So let me turn to another question. It's also close to the heart of people. It's about capacity. We need the 4th Cross Harbor Tunnel. The government said it's being planned. After the Kaoyicha artificial islands are there will be roads, tunnels connecting new territories west with the reclaimed area and then linking up with Hong Kong Island. So that's equivalent to the 4th RHC. But that would take too long to come. Congestion is slightly easing at the 3 RHCs, but the 3 tunnels are at capacity. So before we have the 4th RHC, what other measures can the government take? Secretary. Thank you. I need to tread carefully in responding to this question. The 4th RHC is part of the blueprint. It will take time before we get there. So in the meantime, when the bill about the road tunnel was passed, we discussed this matter with electrical. We regularly review the tolls at the RHCs. We're off to a good start. We want to see continuous easing of congestion. I cannot give a definitive answer on what to do about the capacity. Now we take it one step at a time. We keep an eye on the economy. We look at overall vehicle numbers. We will look at the situation. And then we share our thoughts with electrical.
Government bills. This council resumes the second reading debate on the Telecommunications Amendment Bill 2023. Mr. Duncan.